Christmas, a time for cheer, celebration, and ghost stories. That's right. While most people associate Christmas with joy, family, and presents, there's also an old tradition that has been celebrated for centuries, and that is telling ghost stories. Whether it's a spine-tingling tale shared around a fire or a chilling moment in a holiday film, ghost stories have long been a part of the Christmas season. But where did this curious custom come from? And why does it seem so closely linked to the holidays? The origins of Christmas ghost stories. The practice of telling ghost stories at Christmas dates back to ancient times. The origins of the practice are unknown, as it first began with oral traditions of sharing local spooky stories. According to Sarah Cleto, a folklorist specializing in British literature, she says, "For a very, very, very long time, the season has provoked oral stories about the spooky things in many different countries and cultures all over the world." What we do know is the practice really took off in the Victorian era, the time when spiritualism was all the rage and the printing press was invented, so stories could be shared more easily. The long, dark nights of winter provided the perfect backdrop for gathering around the hearth and sharing supernatural tales. But it wasn't all about ghosts, in fact. It was common to tell all kinds of eerie stories, from local legends to tales of spirits, the afterlife, and strange happenings. In these dark, quiet nights of December, people would often tell stories to pass the time and bring an extra layer of excitement to their holiday festivities. During the Victorian era, Christmas was seen as a time when the boundary between the living and the dead was thinner. Later on, this switched over to Halloween, but it was more common during Christmas at that time. People believed the spirits of the departed were closer during this season of change. Families would gather in the drawing rooms, around fires, or at candlelit tables and share tales of the supernatural. And these weren't grim tales. They weren't meant to be scary and depress people. They're rather stories that invoked both a sense of eerie suspense and sometimes even a moral lesson was included in them as well. A visit from a ghost during Christmas wasn't seen as purely terrifying. It was seen as a way to convey deeper meanings about life, death, and the connections between generations. And as I mentioned earlier, ghost stories during Christmas time really took off during the Victorian era. Because of the Industrial Revolution, the printing press was invented, and people were able to share their stories across continents. Between being able to distribute stories easily and the spiritualist movement really affecting people and how they viewed the afterlife, it became a very popular practice in the Victorian time. One of the most famous contributors to this tradition was Charles Dickens, who made the ghost story a central element of his beloved holiday classic, A Christmas Carol. Published in 1843, this novella tells the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, a miserly old man who is visited by the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come. Through these spectral encounters, Scrooge is forced to confront his own behavior and change his ways. While A Christmas Carol is a story of redemption, it's also a chilling ghost story. The image of the chains of Jacob Marley, the ghost who warned Scrooge, remains one of the most iconic figures in Christmas ghost lore. This blend of festive cheer and haunting specters captivated readers, and the tradition of telling ghost stories at Christmas began to solidify, especially in British culture. Ghosts in modern Christmas celebrations. Now let's fast forward to today, and while this practice of telling ghost stories at Christmas isn't as common, it still does live on in certain circles. Some people might gather on Christmas Eve to tell ghost stories, especially in countries with deep historical ties to the practice, like some still do it in England, or some people that do it in Canada as well. Ghostly themes and supernatural elements still creep into Christmas films and television specials too. Take, for example, Tim Burton's The Night Before Christmas, where ghosts and fantastical creatures play key roles in the holiday narrative.
Open your mind and let yourself go. A place where every day is Halloween and every night Jack Skellington
I am the Pumpkin King!
dreams of something different.
What is this? It's someplace new.
Jack, look out!
Whoa!
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere.
Haven't you heard of peace on earth and goodwill toward men? Touchstone Pictures presents the enchanting story of two very special dreamers and the holiday spirit that brought them together. From the imagination of Tim Burton comes The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, yes, it's not exactly a ghost story, but it captures the same eerie charm that's associated with the Christmas ghost storytelling during the season. And often we see new interpretations of A Christmas Carol pop up every year too. From theatrical performances to animated versions to movies, it all keeps the ghostly tradition quite alive. But why ghost stories at Christmas? You still might be asking yourself, but why Christmas? Why tell ghost stories at this particular time of the year? And the answer, it's about the atmosphere of the seasons. Like I said, winter is the death of the seasons, and it kind of goes into the eeriness and the darkness that we experience too during the winter. Christmas is also a time of reflection, of looking back on the year, contemplating family and connections with our past as well. So it just kind of came a natural progression to start telling ghost stories. The ghost stories tap into the sense of reflection and remembrance. After all, Christmas isn't just time for celebrating the present, but also for honoring those who have gone before us. Christmas is a time when we embrace the unknown, and along with that comes eerie stories sometimes. Whether it's a tale of a haunting or an encounter with a loved one, ghost stories remind us there's magic in the world beyond what we can see. As an addition to this video, I'm going to include a ghost story to end it off. This one is of the haunted Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs. Perched on the crest of the West Mountain above Victorian Village, Eureka Springs, Arkansas, is the historic 1886 Crescent Hotel and Spa. The hotel boasts 78 rooms and is not only known as one of America's most distinctive and historic destinations, but also the most haunted. It was originally designed by Isaac L. Taylor, a well-known Missouri architect who had designed several famous buildings in St. Louis. At this time when it was built, there were healing waters in the area, and they became well-known nationwide. So people near and far were coming into the area in hope to cure their ailments. This is also a time when people were dealing with different illnesses, one also specifically tuberculosis that was all over the place, right? So Powell Clayton, a former governor of Arkansas, formed the Eureka Springs Improvement Company to take advantage of this period, and he, along with other investors, funded the building of this hotel amongst other ventures. The hotel did well for a short time, but eventually people realized that these healing waters didn't really have any curative powers at all, and that kind of died down the whole industry in the area. From 1908 to 1924, the building was utilized as Crescent College and Conservatory for young women, but it continued as a summer resort. However, after operating like this for 16 years, it wasn't enough to maintain costs, and they had to shut down again. It was briefly reopened as a college for about 4 years after that. In 1937, Norman Baker arrived and bought the hotel and turned it into a cancer hospital and health resort. However, he again was doing miracle cures that was no surgery or anything extensive, so it wasn't actual real cures for anything. But people didn't really know back then what to do for cancer, so they all went there assuming that they would receive some sort of miracle. It turns out that he didn't even have a medical license or medical training, and he had a previous conviction in 1936 in Iowa for practicing medicine without a license, but I guess he was able to kind of go under the radar and people didn't realize. But it was about 2 years later, 1939, when he started being investigated again, and people caught on to what was going on. The building sat empty yet again. However, in 1946, it was purchased by a Chicago businessman. Over the next several years, the hotel passed through several hands and repairs and more restorations were made. It was never fully restored to its original grandeur. In 1997, Marty and Elise Ronick purchased the historic inn, and they finished remaining restoration. They did the most successful restorations out of all the other hands that owned it before. So the hotel has a long history, and of course, being used as a hospital and a healing area, there's obviously a lot of people that have experienced death in the hospital as well. So even today, staff and guests alike tell stories of several ghosts that still inhabit the hotel. Most often cited is a red-haired stonemason who has been dubbed the name Michael. Allegedly, Michael was one of the original masons who worked on the hotel in 1885. However, working on the roof, he lost his balance and fell and died, unfortunately. The area that this took place in is room 218 of the hotel and is said to be one of the most haunted guest rooms. Michael likes to play tricks with the lights and the doors and the television and is often heard pounding loudly on the walls. Some people have also witnessed hands coming out of the mirror and cries of what sounds like a man falling from the ceiling. Other guests have been shaken awake at night. On one occasion, a guest ran screaming from the room, saying that they saw blood splattered all over the walls. Another lingering spirit is a nurse dressed all in white. She's often seen pushing a gurney on the 3rd floor. Only spotted after 11 p.m., and that's when they used to move the deceased out of the cancer hospital. The ghostly spirit vanishes when she reaches the end of the hallway, sort of like a remnant of a replay of a situation that happened over and over again. Some people have also reported hearing the squeaks and rattles of a gurney rolling down the hallway. As well, some people say that Dr. Baker also haunts the hotel. He can be seen in the old recreation room in the basement and at the foot of the 1st floor stairway. Some say that they see him dressed in a purple shirt and a white linen suit, looking somewhat confused. There was also a time when the antique switchboard used to continually receive phone calls from an empty basement. There are many ghosts in this hotel. Another one is Theodora, most often seen in room 419. She is known as a very courteous ghost and introduces herself as a cancer patient before vanishing. As well, the hotel's crystal dining room is another place that has frequent paranormal incidents. It has been reported that people see apparitions dressed in Victorian garments wandering around the dining room. There's also another tale of a young woman who died during the time that it was a college, and people say that they also see her as well. There's other apparitions in room 202 and 424, a ghostly waiter carrying a tray in the hallways. And there's other reports of hearing a ghost singing as well in different rooms. As you can see, this hotel has so many different incidents, and there's more incidents than this as well, which is probably why it's nicknamed one of the most haunted hotels in America. Even if you go there for ghosts, it's a beautiful location. I've seen like lots of pictures of the interior and just the original architecture and stuff. They've restored it. So if you do go one day, just even go to appreciate the architecture. Even if these ghost stories aren't true, the architecture is absolutely gorgeous in this place. So, the next time you find yourself gathered with family and friends this holiday season, why not try reviving this old tradition? Share a Christmas ghost story, whether it's a classic like A Christmas Carol, or a chilling family legend, or something new that you may have heard of. Embrace the mystery and the nostalgia and the warmth that these stories bring to our winter nights. And thanks for joining me on this spooky Christmas journey. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As well, I have some short ghost story compilation videos that'll be coming out in the coming days, just for the Christmas time, if you guys want to hear some ghost stories that I found online as well. So stay tuned for those coming up too. And a big thank you to all our members and Patreon supporters. Your support means the world. I do appreciate it quite a bit. And I hope you all are having a wonderful holiday season. Don't worry about what to watch next because I have linked a video, or if you want to sit and watch things for a little bit longer, a whole playlist on the side here. Go ahead and click those now to keep watching.